11 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. We'll give another couple of seconds for people who are joining us, and everybody will get a recording of this too. There were a lot of people that signed up, and Amanda, Jenna, and I were talking earlier. It's awfully nice outside. So I'm imagining some people just wanted to do other things, and we'll watch the recording. So that's good too. Welcome back for our final episode of Science Saturday, presented by Long Beach Island Foundation. I'm Darlene Cavalier, one of the co-hosts, along with Rick Bushnell, who started this whole thing, and Jenna Connolly, who's behind the scenes doing everything at the LBI Foundation. If you have joined us in the past, that's great. Thank you for returning. If you're new to this, let me let you know that it's a series of discussions that we have with people who are doing really cool things to help us protect the island. So our next speaker is Amanda Archer. And before I let Amanda just introduce herself, and she may look familiar to you if you've been with us in past years. Amanda will introduce herself and her role in the context that I just set forth. But I also wanted to remind everybody it's April, it's Citizen Science Month. So if you haven't yet, do one act of science. We have that goal of 2.5 million, 2.5 million acts of science in celebration of America's 250th birthday. And if you're not sure what that means, just go to SciStarter up here, scistarter.org, and we'll include this link in our follow-up too. And I don't know, Jenna, if you can mute, thank you. We'll include the link. You can find thousands of ways to get involved. Really easy to look for something local. You've heard some of those projects featured in our past Science Saturdays. You'll hear another one from Amanda. It's very easy to get involved in citizen science and be part of this whole effort. And we're going to roll out something even more exciting this summer with some partners on the south end of the island. So we're here in the north, we have partners in the south, and we're going to have a holistic approach to collecting data, analyzing data, and helping to protect the island. With it, okay, and a little housekeeping. Do not worry if you have any questions, something's not clear to you. If you know how to use the tools in on Zoom, you can go down and use some of the, where is it, chat? Where do you do the, React. You might see something called React. Raise your hand, whatever you need. Post a question and comments, and we can get to those in real time. Okay? Thank you. All right, over to Amanda.
Awesome. Thank you, Darlene, for having me. I am excited to be back for my third Science Saturday at the Long Beach Island Foundation. Um, if you can familiarize yourself with this screen, so I'm going to be talking about MyCoast today, and if you're looking, it may look familiar. That is a screen grab of Long Beach Island and some of the reports that users have already been submitting over the past couple of years with some photos attached. And so I'm excited to be diving into this tool that can be used by the community today. First, I'll kick off with a little bit of an introduction to who I am, why I'm here, and what I do. My name is Amanda Archer. I serve as the Coastal Training and Engagement Coordinator at the Jacques Cousteau National Estuarine Research Reserve. We are hosted by Rutgers University, so we're an extension office located right in Tuckerton across the bay. And we do research, science, and stewardship programs for the reserve, which is in red, you can see right here. It encompasses estuary systems, the bay, a little bit of the ocean, up the Mullica River watershed, and into the Barnegat Bay watershed. We are one of 30 reserves across the country that are funded through NOAA's Office of Coastal Management. And we are happy to be nestled here right in southern New Jersey. It's known as one of the most pristine estuaries on the East Coast because of its proximity to the protected pine barrens upstream. And so we take pride in that, and we love doing programs around research, science, and education. I also serve as the managing director for the New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative. And in that role, we gather over 100 different partners and practitioners from from different sectors to talk about resilience issues and come up with solutions to coastal hazards that we've been experiencing more frequently and more intense, and ways to overcome them or adapt to them and become more resilient as a state. Um, in my role, I help develop tools and resources. I provide learning opportunities for community leaders, organizations, and really facilitating that collaboration and talking to one another. I was talking to Darlene earlier, before you all hopped on, and was mentioning that we just had one of our most successful events in March. It was a coastal and climate resilience conference that was held in Galloway, New Jersey, and we had over 400 different professionals come and share research and learn from one another, and try to start applying a lot of the new science and research on the ground in New Jersey. And it was a really great event, and I'm happy to come off of it and share some of these things with you all. So today I'm going to talk about what is MyCoast, why, um, what is it, how can I contribute, in partnership with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. The Jacques Cousteau Reserve developed this portal or tool to help communities better understand and communicate flood risks and impacts. And so this is a portal that is used to collect and analyze photos of different coastal events and places. These photos that are collected are linked to scientific data about weather and tides, and it creates these reports that help stakeholders, such as all these different sectors that I work with in my role, such as government agencies, business owners, and residents, understand coastal change, and take in that information to help make them informed decisions about what to do in the future with their investments, with their businesses, and also thinking about our habitats, our communities, and doing holistic planning for the future. And so this platform, it's based on there's a desktop version and there's also an app version. So you'll see in the top right corner, there's a QR code. If you're familiar with how to use a QR code, you open up your phone camera and it will scan that link. And that link will take you to the MyCoast app download if you're interested in downloading the app today to help kind of look at it while I'm going through some of the tools and tricks of MyCoast. And then there's also the link at the bottom of the page that will take you to the desktop version.
I just want to hear what you have to say.
And to go into a little bit more detail, I'm going to talk about the framework of MyCoast and kind of help you understand what it's used for. So we have community users that go out and snap photos of different events, places, things that they love about their community or environment. And we use that in what's called visual science and storytelling. So having that, having those different photos help, like I had mentioned, it links to scientific data. So the photo reports are also collecting data. So as these photos are collected, we then have different practitioners. So, like I had mentioned, some of the government agencies or landowners then have access to look at the data that's been collected from community members to kind of paint a picture of what's happening on the ground in our environment and how it's changing over time. And so they have access to this data coupled with these photos and visual on the ground images to help inform some management decisions that they may have to make for their communities um, under changing conditions. And so having this informed management decisions also, like, that is a goal of the Jacques Cousteau Reserve. That is in our mission to help inform decisions based on the science, and also partnering with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. We then go in and use these photos of on the ground changes or whether it's flooding, erosion, and we use it in our education and outreach as well. So it's like this pretty little picture of how we're all working together to educate one another, collect data, and make more informed management decisions. So diving in a little bit about the tools that are available, I'll go through each of these separately today. And so on the website, we have for New Jersey, we have 5 different tools. And so each state kind of gets to manage their own page on MyCoast. So if you are traveling down the coast, you may still have MyCoast available to you if that state offers it, so that you can contribute data to some of their management decisions as well. New Jersey, we are focused on tracking flooding across the state. We offer a tool that helps communities monitor local tides. We have a tool that helps document the coastal places people love and want to protect. Our most recent tool we launched in 2023 was the photo stations, and those help monitor our shorelines. And then Rising Together New Jersey is a tool that helps people who want to share flood stories and connect on deeper levels. Just sharing our New Jersey flood story as a whole. That's what that platform is for. And like I said, I'll dive into all of these as we go through the presentation. So first, I'm going to talk about the Know Your Tides tool. So this is a more of like an educational page about tide. So what we do know is high tide in New Jersey comes twice a day, whether you're next to the ocean, a bay, or a tidal river. With sea levels rising and getting higher, sunny day flooding is also on the rise. So when we talk about sunny day flooding, that's essentially saying that flooding, as you know, people on the island all know, doesn't only happen during storms. It can also occur during very high tides. Water can come up and infiltrate through the storm drains and flood the roads. It could potentially overtop bulkhead if it's an extreme high tide and come into the roads. And so that, but there's not a cloud in the sky, there's not a drop of rain. That's strictly tidal flooding only. And so that's what coins the term sunny day flooding. And so we have a checklist on, you know, how we have a lot of visitors over the summer months, and just information on how to be tide smart in those scenarios, because may not be familiar with some of the environmental things that, you know, local residents deal with day to day. So just encouraging them to be tide smart and be aware so that they can maximize their summer fun and stay safe by knowing their tides. And so MyCoast hosts a suite of tidal gauges. It connects you to your nearest tide gauge. So when you're looking at the app, this is what it would look like. So checking your local tides. The photo on the left shows the main app screen when you download the MyCoast app, and it gives you your nearest tide gauge and when the next high or low tide is. It gives you information on, you know, in the top right of the screen, a full moon is happening. The different lines on the graph show observed versus predicted water levels. If you see that little red circle, that's it's circling the word nearby. If you were to click that button, it would bring you to the middle phone, which shows you all of your nearest tide gauges. And so we encourage people when they download the app to share, it says share location with state coordinators. And so what that is doing is just making sure that your location is on so that it can connect you to your nearest tide station. And so that's important to have on to give you accurate information. And when it says state coordinators is me. And so it's not I'm not, no one's tracking your location. It's merely for accurate data collection and making sure the data you're looking at is accurate. So you want to make sure that you allow the app to share to have your location data. It then, the next button on that main screen, it says daily. So that is the third phone screen on the screen, on your screen. And it talks about your daily tide data. So it brings up a page about the tides from today, tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday. It gives you an outlook of your mean high tide and your low tide and when you can expect that. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who go out on their boats in the summer. It's starting to get warm. Hopefully, all the boats are coming out. This is a way to check, your nearest tide to make sure that you're getting out during a safe time. We also we do campaigns and we do send out flood alerts when we're expected to have higher tides than normal. So if you look on the screen, it's a screenshot of what the flooding outlook was in 2024. So don't take any notice to those dates on the screen. It's just a screen grab. Where we get our data from is the NOAA Tides and Currents monthly high tide flooding outlook. And so for the next 3 months, we can expect a higher than normal tide. We have April 18th through the 20th, May 15th through the 19th, and then June 13th through the 17th. So what that's telling you is essentially that between that time period, you can expect a higher than normal tide based on the conditions. And so we typically see higher than normal tides about once a month, and it's related to the position of the moon and gravitational pull of the tides. And so when we're expected to have a super, what we term king tide, we like to host photo contests through MyCoast um, to collect those photos, engage people, and it's a way to, submit data through MyCoast, and then we we have the community vote on a winner, and they're the King Tide champions for that year. And so hopefully, we don't have one on schedule for this year, but keep your eye out because there will be a King Tide photo contest coming soon. Another important feature of the MyCoast app is to make sure you have notifications enabled. So in the settings of the app, it will give you a little toggle to enable notifications. And that's important because we send out flood notifications when we do get alerted that there could be a potential high tide, a storm coming in. And so that will alert you through MyCoast. So one example of those notifications is in the center. It talks about a nor'easter bringing water levels 2 feet higher than predicted tides. Plan to check your local tide stations and document flooding with MyCoast, and also make sure to stay safe. And so that's one way to be alerted to when tides may, be higher than normal. I wouldn't completely depend on it for every single high tide or flooding event because flooding happens differently in different places, and some places flood higher than others, even across the small state of New Jersey. And so, one way to be reminded of when each high tide is to click this remind me button on the app. And what that will do is remind you when the next high tide is, and it will give you a time window of when that reminder will be set out. So you can set those on your own, and then those bigger, nor'easter or storm notifications would come through the app separately. And so the app is also, it has a lot of features. You have the ability to submit your reports right through the app. So as you open up the app, there's that main screen, there's an add report button on the bottom, that yellow button. And so submitting photos with the app is super simple. When you click that add report button, it brings you to a report page where you can select what type of report you would like to submit. And so a lot of these align with the tools I had already gone through. The first one being a photo station to monitor shorelines. I'll go into that in more detail. The high water tool to track flooding, places we love. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about these new tools that have been introduced in the last couple of years. The Mid-Atlantic Regional Report. So that is led by Marco, which is a regional ocean group, and they use MyCoast to document different ways people recreate on the coast and also wildlife. And so those tools are also available for any MyCoast user to submit to notify those mid-Atlantic coordinators. The national tool that is now on MyCoast is called Abandoned and Derelict Vessel. And so that is Boat US Foundation, who has a national tool across the entire US where you can report abandoned vessels and submit it uh, to notify them that there is an abandoned vessel there. And so those are just a couple of new things that I wanted to highlight, but for the sake of this presentation, I won't be diving into those specific tools and focus more on the state tools. So I'm going to talk a little bit first about what a high water report is and what it looks like and how it can help, inform people. So this is a report that was submitted in Atlantic City, and it shows, you can see on the bottom left, it shows a car running through a puddle. In the center, that photo that was submitted links by that time and date to the tide gauge that's closest to where the photo was taken. So this tide gauge, the closest one is Atlantic City in the ocean, and it gives you a graph of the water level, the high tide. Predicted high tide is in the blue line that you see there, and then the actual observed tide is in the red line. So you can see in this scenario that the predicted was less than what actually had happened. And so that little yellow dot that you see on the arc of the graph is when the photo was reported. So it gives you that report time. So that tells you that this photo was taken right after peak tide, right as it was falling. It also connects to the weather data. So it tells the wind speed, direction, if there was rainfall in the last 24 hours. And then the last piece of data it connects to is riverine overview. And this is more so important in some of the more inland communities because it will link to the nearest river gauge instead of a tide gauge. And so that helps connect that data to a more accurate report of what the river levels are at during that time. And so you might ask, what does this data really mean to me? I'm just, submitting a report of high water, like MyCoast may ask me to do. And so the data is important because it connects it with on-the-ground imagery and helps inform flood modelers or researchers what it actually is doing on the ground compared to their models. And so what this does is it helps fine-tune those differences when they compare it side by side, and it makes their modeling more accurate into the future. And so one thing that practitioners would use and how they would use MyCoast is if you click on this yellow button here called View New Jersey Flood Mapper, it would bring those higher level planners and researchers to this flood mapping page. So this is like a modeling page by Rutgers University called New Jersey Flood Mapper. And so your photos link directly into this planning tool. And you can see this is the high water report. On the left-hand side is a bunch of different layers that they can use to manipulate different flooding scenarios. And so in this particular case, it was just me messing around with the tool, and I tried to match up what it looked like on the ground with what the flood model was saying. And so based on that, it kind of brought me to kind of like told me that the total water level of this particular flood day was 2 feet over mean high water. And so you can see in the green, um, all of that is flooding in low-lying areas. So those are typically when water comes up through the storm drains and gets hung up in those low-lying areas. And so in the next photo, it shows a little bit more of an intense flood model. When the water is a little bit higher, this is what it would look like. And so what's important and why it's important to connect these tools together with science is that we were also able to identify that that particular location where the photo was taken is also linked to a critical asset, which is a school. So this is where the photo was taken. Through Flood Mapper, we were able to determine it was a school. And so when planners look at this, they think about things of how many flood days per year are students not going to be able to get to school because of this increased flooding in this area? And what can we do in the future to improve infrastructure or prevent this type of flooding from happening so we don't run into those daily issues or things that, will prevent us from living our daily lives. So that was an example of more of an like urbanized report. I I am a estuary person at heart. I grew up, well, I didn't grow up on the coast, but I grew in my career working in salt marshes. And so I really like to see, what the effect it's going to have on natural spaces. And so working at the reserve, I'm also able to submit high water reports like in off of our trail. And so this helps inform our management decisions at the reserve. And so this is a report that I submitted in October of last year. If anybody remembers, I couldn't tell you what storm it was. It may have been a combination of a nor'easter and a high tide that happened at the same time. Um, or maybe it was like one of those hurricanes that had come through up the coast, and we got, hit pretty hard in Tuckerton with some of that flooding. So this is my report. This is the Grassy Marsh Trail which is behind our research reserve. It's open to the public 24/7. You can go out on the trail and use our boardwalk that oversees our grassy marsh. This was what my report looks like. It asks you the source of flooding. I said it's from the bay. The cause of flooding, I knew it was high tide because if you look at the tidal overview, I took this photo 14 minutes after high tide. And I had purposely gone out during high tide to see what this peak flooding would look like. I knew there was a storm, so it was definitely some type of storm surge. And I also knew it was raining. So, and you can see that too in the weather overview. So those are my cause of flooding that I submitted. And then it links to your nearest tide gauge, which in this case, Tuckerton Creek, gives me my predicted high tide, my weather, and my closest river. So now I click View on New Jersey Flood Mapper, and I started manipulating some of these tools to show me how often this area would flood in the future, considering sea level rise. So, looking at this summary panel, my closest tide gauge I could connect to predict this level was Atlantic City. When we think about, sea level rise, a lot of it depends on how much, emissions we're putting into the atmosphere. So, what this Rutgers tool does is it lets you select what type of emission scenario you think it will be in the future to generate this level. And so this may be like a little complicated for some people to follow, but when we think about our emissions, we can't predict what our emissions will be by 2050. if we make decisions to cut our emissions, then maybe that will have an effect on how much water we're going to see in the future. And so my time frame, I put in uh 2050 is my planning horizon. My estimate, I wanted to be sure that there was a 5%, less than 5% chance of sea levels exceeding 2.6 feet by 2050. And all of these tools are linked to the latest Rutgers Science and Technical Advisory Report. So all of these are the most updated numbers of what we can expect in the future. I also linked what I wanted to know what would be the annual flood level in 2050 under this scenario. And so what this spits out is my total water level estimated by 2050. And so that's at 4.2 feet. So it gave me a total water level of 4 feet. So here's my report. This is the same flood mapper showing my report of the flooded trail and boardwalk. And then when I linked that total water level of 4 feet, this is what it looked like. So what this tells me is when I went out and I saw our flooded trail, this is exactly approximately where the water line ended. So I came out of our office building, hit water immediately after the forest line, and walked through water all the way to our trail. And so what this is telling me that is that in 2050, I can expect the annual flood day to look like this. Um, and so it kind of allows us to prepare as a reserve to know that, you know, we can expect this type of flood level more often in the future. So that was like a lot more technical to kind of run through. This is going to bring us kind of back to using the app of how to submit a report. And so this is what it looks like on the app when you click the high water button. This is my flooding photo that I have of the trail. You want to make sure that the date and time match the photo submission. So sometimes MyCoast will submit a date and time of when you're actually uploading the photo and not when the photo was actually taken. So you want to ensure that you have the right date and the right time linked when you submit your report. It will then ask you, what is the source of flooding? So the source of flooding in this case, bay, and then the cause of flooding, high tide, storm surge, and we also said it was rain. And then you can write a comment. So I put a comment that this is the grassy marsh at JC Near. Then you click next. The next page brings you to a map, and this is also really important to double check to ensure your location is accurate of where the photo was taken. So accuracy is most important, especially when we go back and review these photos and try to figure some of the data out. So this is where the photo was taken. Yep, confirmed. I agree, submit. And so it's that simple to submit your reports through the app. We also have the ability to take past reports on MyCoast, so you can upload photos from any past flooding event. The date, time, and location should be automatically linked upon submission, but we always need that double check. If the photo is older than when location services became available in photos and it's not embedded with that information, it's important to review when and where the photo was taken to ensure an accurate report. And so we encourage submissions of past flooding so that we can compare them to recent reports. So this is an example of Ramapo River flooding in Pompton Lakes in April 2007 that somebody had submitted. And so having those past reports is important to compare to current reports to see how much things have changed over time. And so I'm going to stop talking now and link us to a video. If you give me 1 second to pull it up. Oop. Because I cannot play it within the PowerPoint, I just have to go to a different screen. Oh, okay. This is a video that the state of Rhode Island had made on the best photo tips for submitting a report to MyCoast.
And I'm with Rhode Island Sea Grant, part of the MyCoast Rhode Island team. MyCoast relies on volunteers like you to take photos of coastal flooding to help planners keep an eye on areas at risk. Here are some tips for taking great MyCoast photos next time a hurricane, nor'easter, or king tide hits Rhode Island. Tip number 1, get as close as you safely can to the area you're photographing. If the floodwater is way in the background, it can be hard to tell what the problem is. This photo is a little far away, but it shows a landmark, the ball field fence, that clearly should not have a wide pool of water in front of it. Include landmarks. Landmarks, like signs or other easily identifiable objects in a photo, can be helpful to give people a sense of scale or to help them realize that water is somewhere it does not belong. Here are some photos with landmarks that help tell the story. This photo shows the flooding along Common Fence Boulevard in Portsmouth, and the sign and the porta-john are landmarks that help us understand what's going on. The resolution, however, could be higher, which would make some of the details more clear. Always be sure to set your phone or camera to take high-resolution photos, and don't use your phone's zoom feature, which can create blurry images. This street sign shows that this is a paved road where floodwaters clearly don't belong. The photo shows the bay in the background, which also helps us see that this is coastal flooding. The ladder in this photo is a striking landmark showing that the water level in the harbor overtopped the wall and flooded the parking lot. Tip number 3, include a person in the photo. By including a person in the photo, you can give a sense of scale of the flooding as well, and further demonstrate that water is in the wrong place. This photo includes a woman on a bicycle who looks rather small compared to the flooded roadway. These fishermen at Salter Grove in Warwick have clearly walked down a flooded cobble path to get to the shore. We have a lot of photos of the Brown Street parking lot in Wickford, and this is one of the most successful ones because the person in the photo adds interest, helping to bring the viewer into the photo, and it also shows the scope of the water there. Tip number 4 is capture movement. Capturing water movement, such as a car splashing through a major puddle, can create a dramatic photo. Context matters too. Water crashing against a seawall is expected, but water crashing up against a staircase is unexpected. This photo has great composition with the diagonals of the staircase drawing your eye to the water splashing at the foot of the stairs. This photo from Warwick also has great composition with the truck in the foreground and the water spraying up, which gives you a sense of the water depth as well as drama. It looks like the truck is driving directly into the abyss. MyCoast has a number of photos of this area of Market Street in Warren, and this one helps show the volume of water, not only by showing that the sidewalk is submerged, but also the water being sprayed up by the car. Action is always interesting. Tip number 5, seek clarity. Anything that clearly shows that water is in the wrong place can be powerful. The clearer the photo, the easier it is for people, especially those unfamiliar with the area, to recognize what's wrong with this picture. This image from Providence, rather than showing movement, shows absolutely still water, which in this case powerfully reveals what is below, a brick walkway, while also reflecting the sky. The strong diagonal lines add to the interest. Here, too, the still water reflects the trees along the shoreline. At first, you might think this is a pond until you notice the pavement. The clarity, both in composition with not too many things going on, and the quality of the resolution, help these images quickly tell a story about high tide flooding. This photo clearly demonstrates that something is wrong. The silverfish stand out against the cobblestones, and the other colorful debris around the storm drain show that this is the aftermath of a flood. So those are just a few tips for taking great MyCoast photos. Please remember that above all, we appreciate all your photos and everything you do to help monitor Rhode Island's coastlines to help improve resilience for future generations. Thank you. Hi, I'm Monica.
Okay, so that was just a brief intro on what we're looking for in photos to help make it the most accurate representation of what we're looking at. So let me just switch back over to my PowerPoint. Okay. So here's some examples of some great photos from New Jersey itself. And so this is on the left-hand side, we have Keyport, New Jersey, showing erosion and high water, overtopping the road and causing a lot of damage. Then we have overtop storm drain in Brick, and then overtopping bulkhead in Little Lake Harbor. And so these are the types of photos we're looking for. If you are super creative and you like writing or storytelling, we also have a platform to submit stories and visuals. And this is our Rising Together New Jersey tool, which was focused on the storytelling aspect. We held a campaign after Hurricane Ida to document storytelling and visuals from communities who experienced that increased flooding and rainfall in New Jersey. And so what we want to know in the story, so this could be submitted not by the app, but by the desktop version. We want to know what happened, when did it happen, a little bit on how it may have affected you, and also did this experience change how you think about flooding? And so in this particular report, we had someone post Barnegat Bay flooded the streets in 2022, winter storm. The bay tide rose to its highest level since Sandy. Roads were impassable. Police activity was needed to transport residents. Um, Roads are being raised by local Brick and Toms River municipalities at a cost of several $1 million. But under these circumstances, higher roads will not solve access problems, certainly getting worse in terms of heavy flooding past several years. And this changed the way that this person may have thought about flooding in the past, because since flooding is getting so much worse year to year, the value of this person's home is holding steady or rising. However, it becomes a concern and need to consider selling out eventually before values start to fall. And so this is just a platform for people to share their feelings, connect with one another, and talk about these issues. One of the other tools I had mentioned that MyCoast holds is the Places We Love tool. So I went in a deep dive on the high water tool. The Places We Love is very similar to high water, except it has the aspect of posting anywhere in the community that you love and you want to protect. So this tells officials and practitioners that our community members really value this space. And when we are planning things, we should really consider like mitigation strategies, resilience strategies on what to do here. And it links all of the same data. You may have come across some of our photo stations. So like I had mentioned, we launched these in 2023 during Climate Week. We have 6 locations across various coastlines in New Jersey that help document climate and coastal changes of shorelines. And so when you submit a photo station report, they are these fixed structures that are already existing. So you put your phone in the phone holder, snap a photo of the shoreline, and it gives a time-lapse series of how that space is changing over time. And so the photos on the left-hand side of the screen are showing one photo station that we installed at Island Beach State Park. And then the next photo is on the Margate Fishing Pier. So these are our current locations. We have one in Liberty State Park, Cheesequake State Park, Island Beach. We have 2. So there's one on the ocean side, capturing the dune shoreline, and then there's one on the bay side, capturing the marshy edged shoreline. Margate City and Cape May Point. These got shifted, so Margate City is right around here. And then this is what it looks like on the app when people submit reports. So this is a live stream. We have this as Liberty State Park. Somebody submitted just yesterday of this shoreline, Cape May photo station, And then this is the Island Beach State Park photo station report. So briefly, I'll run through this quickly. This is kind of what it looks like. I wish I had updated photos to show more of a dramatic change, but this is only from a year's time. You could see the dunes in the winter versus, in the summer, and it really shows how the dunes form and they change over time due to the wind and tides and vegetation. So this vegetation is really holding that dune structure together, whereas in the winter, it's kind of like dissipated. Margate City Pier, we have a low tide versus a storm surge, and you can tell the difference with that pipe in the background. And then Cheesequake State Park, we have marshy Back Bay Creek, and this is showing it at a low tide versus a high tide, and you could really see during high tide how those marshes absorb that floodwater and provide protection for the infrastructure and communities behind it. Ways that practitioners are using MyCoast data and photos. So I did the deep dive with the high water tool, showing how people use it through New Jersey Flood Mapper, can be used for real-time awareness, in planning, project siting and design, permit review, grant proposals, or model calibration and ground truthing. So these are different ways that MyCoast photos can be used. These are two examples of it being used in practice. So MyCoast New York did some hazard mitigation planning with MyCoast. And so what they did is they asked the community to go out and snap photos to identify hazards. And then they took all of that information and used it in their hazard mitigation planning. And that kind of outlines a process of how they've done that. We've also had a more local use of MyCoast in a project by Stockton University and Monmouth University. They were developed, or they still are developing a sediment transport model for the Little Egg Harbor Inlet. And so there's a call out for anyone, any boaters, fishermen, surfers, to snap photos of shoals and shorelines using the Places We Love tool. And then they are then using those photos that are captured along the inlet to help actually see like where the sediment is going in reality versus their models so that they can fine tune some sediment modeling. This is what it looks like to download reports on the back end. So like for people who want to use this data in projects, this is how we download your reports and apply them. So we could filter it by your high water or your places we love or your shoreline photos. It gives us flooding sources and causes. Estimated water depth is new. I think that MyCoast has this new feature where you can put in an estimated water depth, which would be more helpful when analyzing it on the back end. Counties, communities, localities. So this is just showing how we filter it out for the whole state and really hone in on what data we really need. So my call to action to you all is to, there's a lot of people who see what's going on and want a way to contribute or help. And you could do that in many different ways. You can do community cleanups, you can volunteer, you can participate in community science projects. Darlene has an array of options, especially for the month of April, to participate in community science. And so my call to action to you all is to download the app and sign up for these high water alerts. You can post your photos or stories to MyCoast to share it on social media. So, we really want this work to be shared and we want to make it as impactful as possible. So really connecting it to those users who are using the data. If you attend community events and become an amplifier in your town or community who are planning for resilience, make sure they know about this and that they can hear from the community through this avenue. And just keep using MyCoast because we wouldn't be able to do this without you, and you are the link in the triangle to pull this all together. um, and come up with solutions for what's expected to come. And so with that, I that is your run through of MyCoast. And if you have any questions, I'll be here for the next 10 minutes. So happy to take any questions.
Linda, that was great. I learned so much every time. And I think the program and your work is just getting better and better. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us and for returning for Science Saturday too. Really just outstanding work. We did a question here. This is from Dave, and Dave is still on the line. So Dave, you can take your mic off if you want to ask it directly, or I can just translate what's in here, which is Dave still has mute on. I just have remind me and daily no nearby. Is there
No
maybe
nearby.
That
You may
that was
need
on the app.
it was on the app?
you okay, you may need to update it because it might be like a newer feature. So I just screenshotted these this morning, so it may just be an update.
Okay.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Do you think he might need to look at his, maybe you did this already, Dave, in your settings to make sure your location is turned on?
Oh, yes, that too. Thank you. That might be it.
No, location is on. It has me at the Barnegat
Great.
um location, but it just didn't have whatever. It's just not on that front page. And it could be because I'm using an Android version too. I don't know whether it's different between the Apple and Android app or not.
Oh, you know what? That might be it. I'm an iPhone user. I'm not sure what the Android looks like, but I'll have to track somebody down with an Android to see and check on that.
Yeah, that was the only difference that I saw.
Okay.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions about MyCoast or anything else that Amanda shared with us? You can put it in chat, or you can take your mute off too and just jump in. I think everybody still has their mute on, which is fine. And Keith says, thank you, Amanda. Very informative. I thought so too. I mean, I think you just explained it so well. There probably are not any questions. Every question I had, you answered. Last chance. We still have 7 minutes of Amanda's time, or I can give everybody 7 minutes of your day back.
I have a quick question. Just how does this interoperate with the New Jersey DEP and the GIS system they have? And I know like the Barnegat Bay Partnership does that paddle for the edge. They have another, GIS type of system. Does all
Yep.
this data get shared or are these all standalone apps or how do people think about that?
So the only linkage with MyCoast is with the Rutgers University tool. That's the only like direct link. There is a way to like if practitioners want to download the MyCoast layer and insert it into one of their GIS databases that they have the opportunity to do that, just, reach out to me. But I know we've talked with Paddle on the Edge and we tried to integrate it in some way, but Paddle for the Edge has a lot more um, data collection in it, so it wasn't super feasible to like mesh the two together. But they are all initiatives that are happening, and maybe what we could do to make it easier for everyone living around this area is to have kind of everything like in one place to show, this is informing this and this is informing that. But yeah, a lot of organizations have their own platforms. It's just, practitioners on the back end have to pull from this and then pull from that to put it in their own, analysis.
Amanda, um, could you tell me, do you interface at all with the mates school?
Yes, I do.
We just had a wonderful opportunity there a week ago or so, and we were amazed. We were so unaware of the existence of that entity, and we're really enlightened as we were today by your presentation. But what so much of what you said is what they're striving to, you know, claim as important living in this area. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was wonderful to hear and to hear your presentation today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I I've never been to that facility before until recently, for an event, and I was also taken back by how, like, I wish I had that opportunity in
Yes.
high school to attend something like that. So yeah, great facility, and I think this area is like really setting itself up to, be really educated in this space with
Mm.
that. So
Hey, Arthur. What's up?
Anybody else? I think Jose,
Yeah.
I might be picking up.
I can try, yes.
Uh,
I can do it.
Jenna, Jose, if you're speaking to us, we can hear you. If not, I'm going to ask Jenna to mute you
Yeah,
while
yeah.
we all
It's
say
fine.
goodbye to each other. So we don't hear everything Jose's talking about. All right. Any other final questions? I want to thank everybody for just showing up for our Science Saturdays. Look for more programming coming out of the Long Beach Island Foundation. If you registered for any of the events like today's, you'll receive some updates on what we're planning for the summer as well. Lots of opportunities to get involved in these projects and others. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Bye, everyone. Have a great Saturday. Thanks, Amanda. Bye,
thanks
Jenna.
all.
Bye-bye. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Darlene. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, everyone, for the 2026 Science Saturday series. Thank you all.